Your data is invalid, the CEO said, voice barely above a whisper, her back straight as she stared across the table. Two lawyers traded glances, one quietly tapped a pen. Are you sure you want this public? She asked, eyes refusing to meet his. The man didn't look up from the folder. You sent the letter, he replied, each word level as a ruler. The room seemed suspended between breaths. I want the truth, not an arrangement. In the tense stillness, her hand gripped the edge of her chair. You can't back out now, she said, something brittle just beneath. He set the folder on the polished table, let his palm rest flat. That's not your call anymore, he said quietly. She closed her eyes for just a moment, searching for a word. None came. One assistant pressed her lips together, gaze on her shoes. Journalists at the side of the room waited, not daring to speak. Do you understand what you're doing? The CEO finally managed, barely audible. The man's answer was a silence that seemed to draw every gaze in the room. There is always someone who knows the real story, no matter how carefully you arrange the facts. Stay until the very end. It started 2 weeks earlier on a Tuesday morning that no one expected to matter. Jard Miles set the battered paper cup next to the projector, his hand leaving a small crescent of condensation. The morning crowd at the Royal Cinema came in slow drifts, a trickle of retirees and teenagers escaping summer heat. Jard, in a faded navy usher shirt with a missing button, counted tickets in his palm, a reflex, though the scanner had done its job. He made his way through the velvet aisle, scanning for popcorn spills, hearing the subtle crunch beneath his shoes. A notification buzzed faintly in his back pocket. The cracked phone screen caught the reflection of rotten news, rent due in 11 days. He slid the phone away, careful not to let anyone see the splintered glass. He'd taken the early shift from George, whose kid had a dentist appointment, but the manager barely noticed. Customary, Jard thought, that was how it went. His daughter, Chloe, would be with Mrs. Lowen until noon. $11 left for the week. Outside, a line gathered near the box office. He saw her immediately. The woman moved with an urgency that repelled obstacles, designer suit, black sunglasses, the posture of someone who didn't wait. A man in a pressed blue uniform flanked her, murmuring, "Your car is ready, Dr. Lennox." Jard recognized Dr. Lennox, hospital CEO, the subject of a dozen staff anecdotes traded late at night in movie theater break rooms. She barely looked at Jard as she handed off a valet slip, her eyes flicking over him then away, as if the act of acknowledging him was a formality. "Excuse me," she said to the sales manager, "is this the courtesy car lot?" Her voice carried. Everyone dropped jokes, staff, the old man headed to see a war movie. "It's over there, ma'am," Jard replied, pointing. The CEO stopped, attention landing sharper. "Is this your vehicle?" She nodded toward a battered red sedan with a mismatched door and duct-taped mirror at the curb, sandwiched between luxury leases. "That's mine," Jard said, tone flat. She laughed softly, mouth barely moving. "How much did that set you back?" She didn't pause. "Looks like something my nephew would bring home for scrap," her assistant tittered. A man who had been cleaning the popcorn machine dropped a scoop. $100, Jard said, folding the utility receipt he'd been holding, tucking it into his front pocket. "Drive straight, windows roll down." Eyes in the parking lot shifted to him. Someone snapped a photo. "What do they pay the help here?" "Not enough for respectability, clearly." The CEO angled her sunglasses higher and moved away, her entourage in tow. Jard didn't respond. He picked up a stray popcorn bag, placed it upright on the counter, and went back inside. The shape of the morning had changed. By noon, Jard was back at the apartment, using his shoe as a doorstop to keep it from slamming and drawing complaints from Mrs. Wu across the hall. Chloe's voice filtered from inside, high and a little off-key. "I'm trying to fix it." She was sitting cross-legged on the faded carpet, a broken music box at her side. The painted ballerina wobbled but didn't turn, motionless in a shell of chipped pink enamel. Chloe was 6, hair escaping the elastic in small wings, her yellow shirt smudged with lunch. The music box had belonged to her mother, a fact even Chloe knew not to bring up unless she needed quiet. Jard knelt beside her, glancing at the line of tiny screws on the floor. "Need some help?" he asked, voice even. He watched Chloe's fingers, careful and focused, as she lined up each screw as if music would emerge if only she arranged things precisely. She looked at him, earnest. "Daddy, do you get tired of always fixing stuff?" Not toys, she meant. Things that couldn't be fixed with a screwdriver. Jard's hands paused over the box, a small spin of tension between wrist and palm. He set the screwdriver down gently and drew a slow breath. "Sometimes things just need a little time apart before they work again." It was all he offered, words smooth as silver coins. Chloe tilted her head, unconvinced, clutching the music box to her chest. "Will it play again?" she asked. "If we keep trying," Jard said, a small crease in his brow. He tucked a note into her backpack. He always wrote them, even when he could only think of the same 3 lines. "Today, have courage, help someone, come home safe." In the kitchen, the coffee pot dripped, each sound a ticking of seconds forward. He opened the fridge, leftover soup, a wrinkled apple, and Chloe's last juice box saved for tomorrow. His phone vibrated, glass catching the light, a payment reminder he swiped away with his thumb, purposefully missing the number. The hall table bore no decoration except for a hospital wristband, faded numbers pressed into plastic. Maria's name, Chloe's birth date. If Chloe saw it, she said nothing. Sometimes, at night, Jard would trace the band's edge when the apartment was silent. That afternoon, he left a $1 bill in Mrs. Lowen's mailbox. Later, he put a paper cup of water downstairs for the postal worker, a small, anonymous note attached. "Smile, you do good work." The building's handyman nodded as Jard hauled up a basket of laundry. "You always got time for people, Miles." Chloe at the window waved her music box. "Don't forget to bring popcorn tonight," she called. Jard smiled, returned the salute, then folded a threadbare kitchen towel, movements precise. The bus to the theater was late, and he never ran for it. Not anymore. Far above the main corridors, in a boardroom with glass walls and a view of the bay, Dr. Estelle Lennox flipped through a slim folder, eyes never pausing. Her hair was pinned in place, a single strand out of line, unnoticed. "Tuesday's schedule. Move the finance meeting up. Tell that one the numbers guy to cut the trial operations," she said. Her executive assistant typed as fast as she spoke. "Dr. Lennox, coffee. 2 sugars, don't forget the call at 10, put Miss Ocampo through immediately." An administrator hovered, clipboard gripping white-knuckled. Estelle's phone vibrated. She silenced it, gaze tightening and lip pressed between her teeth. A notification flashed, "Breathe, Headspace app 1340. She thumbed it away. Panic attacks, they didn't announce themselves, and she refused to let her staff see. She kept a fob of lorazepam in her bag, covered by a fresh lipstick. On her desk, a photo faced away from visitors. In it, Estelle as a child sat on a hospital gurney, her mother's arms around her, both faces mid-laughter. Sometimes she'd linger with her finger on the glass a beat longer, tracing the outline. She had no children, no one who called her at night just to hear her voice. A sharp rap and her father's old partner appeared. "Congratulations, Estelle, redevelopment's greenlit." He handed a contract across the table. She didn't smile. "We move forward, close out the old files, especially the legal ones," she paused, "and the theater issue, have it handled." "Yes, ma'am," the assistant replied, eyes flickering to Estelle's still hands. She read the schedule. A name stood out, J. Miles, equipment consultant, flagged for noncompliance. "Should I call the lot?" the assistant asked. She set her glass down, breathing measured. "Make sure we're in full compliance inside and out. Whoever that is, keep him off my calendar." Outside the boardroom, traffic pulsed. She repeated to herself, "In, hold, out." Her thumb brushed the anxiety fob in her bag. "No mistakes," she said quietly. At dusk, ticket sales were slow and the concession stand spilled over with uneaten nachos. The usual crowd loitered, small knots forming under the marquee lights. In the alley, a thin stream of smoke curled upward, a fire alarm blaring faint but urgent. Someone shouted, "Kids stuck inside!" The cluster of teenagers melted into distance. A security guard ducked away to call 911, eyes wide. No one seemed to move toward the chaos. Jard heard the cry from inside, snapped upright, popcorn bucket still in hand. He pushed through a side door, saw a boy of 8 frozen near the flicker of flame, paralyzed by the smoke curling into the projection room's low ceiling. The specialists, an off-duty paramedic and the evening shift supervisor, waited by the entrance, unsure who had keys or protocol. He didn't shout. He grabbed the fire extinguisher, wedged the door with his hip, and crouched to the boy's level. "I need you to look at my shoes," Jard said, voice clear, steady. "We're going to step out together. Watch each step, don't let go." The child steadied, nodded, eyes fixed as directed. Jard's grip was gentle, fingers threaded with certainty. He shielded the boy's mouth with a folded theater program. "Go now," he said, no hesitation. As they moved, Jard tracked the rhythm of the boy's breath the way some men follow song lyrics, counting the beats to the exit. The extinguished fire hissed behind them. He glanced once at the thermostat panel on the wall, the source of the smoke, not the fuse box. In the lobby, the guard started forward. Was it a wiring short? Jard shook his head, already kneeling. No, thermostat control failed, likely relay stuck. Don't touch until you cut main power. The boy's mother wept into her hands. The paramedic blinked, then said, I'll get maintenance, but how did you? He trailed off. It wasn't the thermostat, Jard said, wiping his hands with a napkin. Check the control relay by the service hatch. The mother pulled the boy into her arms, relief shaking her shoulders. The crowd watched, silent for a moment before resuming normal chatter. The guard returned, face unreadable. Estelle entered, phone clutched tight. What happened? She demanded, eyes darting. Who gave you permission to be back here? The security guard opened his mouth, closed it. That man, he pointed at Jared, got the kid out, says he knows the equipment. Estelle's lips pressed tighter. Probably a fluke, she said crisply. We get a lot of upgrades that don't always work. Move everyone out. I'll handle this. The guard's gaze lingered on Jard. He seemed to know exactly what he was doing. The memory fanned old suspicion, something he couldn't quite name tugging at the back of his mind. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. Late that night, the security guard, Tom Ruiz, stared at the incident report queued up on his screen. His hands tapped the mouse, but his eyes kept flicking to Jard's name in the incident log. 20 years running the circuit, public events, sports stadium claims, fire drills gone wrong. He'd never seen a blue-collar nobody step into chaos so cleanly. He mopped his brow, then double-checked the database. No prior incidents for J. Miles, no certifications. The HR tab was thin, address, social references missing or generic. The last employment field was movie theater operator, nothing fancy. He toggled over to an old city database, nothing, but the name echoed somewhere. A faint hunch. He clicked through to courthouse archives, a partial match. Miles Jardia, a case citation from years ago hidden in the appeals docket. Sealed outcome, not his business. But the code, former appellate clerk status, declined position, written in a different font. Meanwhile, in the third-floor apartment, Chloe held her music box while Jard scrubbed dishes over the tiny sink, sleeves rolled high. She hesitated at the doorway, tracing a finger around the silvered rim. "Daddy, will you ever run out of tries?" she asked, eyes searching his. He paused, water pooling over soap, plate forgot. "What do you mean?" His hands didn't move, only the water kept running. "If you stop fixing stuff, what happens to all the broken things?" Chloe looked down at the music box, lips pressing together. "I guess somebody else will have to try for a while," Jard said after a beat, softer than before. She nodded, then put the music box on the windowsill. "You can borrow my tries if you need them. That's how you always make it work." She walked away, leaving him still as the water, the scrape of the world barely registered. The music box's broken ballerina stared back at him, paused mid-spin. The calendar above the sink read rent due, 11 days, unspoken countdown. He dried the plate and stacked it carefully. Back at the theater, Tom left the office with a printout, intent to ask questions. In the alley, the tow truck idled, exhaust lending urgency. The driver, jacket zipped against August heat, looked up from a clipboard. "You Tom?" he asked, flipping a page. "Got orders from upstairs to start tagging vehicles. That red beater S next." Tom squared himself, paper in hand. "Someone called you for that?" The driver shrugged. "Lady in the car, big shot, says it's parked too long, got no business here, wants it gone now." "Maybe wait a sec, the owner's inside and it saved a kid's life. You sure you want to tow it anyway?" Tom's tone was mild but not uncertain. The driver grinned. "I don't ask why, wheels are wheels." He snapped a photo, affixed a ticket. Inside, Tom found Jard at the clockout station, handing in his name tag. "You really know wiring or just luck?" Tom asked. "Know enough to double-check the obvious," Jard replied, voice even as always, tucking a receipt into his pocket. A man in a suit, the finance director, appeared, envelope in hand. "You'll take this for your help," he said, thrusting an envelope. Jard shook his head. "I'm here for the job I have, not my business to profit from someone else's accident." The director's forehead lined. You'll accept the task then. We need someone to look over the backup system before the next inspection. Pays double. I'll take a look, Jard said. He didn't smile. But I'm not signing anything I can't check twice. Tom, listening, filed the reply. That night, the city's skyline blinked beneath a low cloud cover. Inside the building's thin walls, Chloe blinked herself awake. The ballerina, unmoving, caught what light the street offered. Jard watched her sleep, each slow inhale proof of something he'd built and kept going, even as the world tried to tow it away. A fresh order came down from above. Next morning, the CEO discovered her directive carried out with bureaucratic zeal. Not only was Jard's car towed, but she received complaint calls from the union, the fire department, and the city's risk office. Her lips barely moved as she read the reports, one hand on her temple, thumb massaging, breath deliberately even. In the lobby, Estelle made her move publicly. With her board members present, she gestured dismissively at Jard beside the broken concession sign. Some days I wonder if we enforce any standards at all, she announced. Have you checked his record? How many times does this place have to be laid out? A few chuckled, uncomfortable. An older man on the board, Mr. Talbot, looked away. Jard listened, hands behind his back, spine straight, not in opposition but in acknowledgement. He looked at the napkin dispenser resting on the counter, ran a thumb along its edge, stopping at a dent he couldn't remember making. He said nothing. The moment hung. Tom found Jard on the loading dock that afternoon. She's making it tough for you, Tom muttered. Should I be worried you'll just disappear? Jard's answer was quiet. No vanishing acts, I put in my time. Tom pulled a slip of paper from his pocket, voice low. That old sealed docket, I found the name yours on an appeal, declined years back. Why? Jard shrugged, gaze steady. That's not who I am now. He tapped his phone, a single message sent. This is J. Miles. Yes, you can come now. He slid the phone in his back pocket, tight grip betraying little else. At the elementary school, Chloe stared out the window as her teacher collected lunchboxes. A boy nudged her music box, cracking the ballerina's bass further. She said nothing but turned away for the rest of recess. Her teacher made a note to call home. Chloe didn't mention the box in her end-of-day pickup. Outside the theater, Jard paused mid-stride, eyes on the clouds thickening above. Something new was beginning to take shape, quick and linear as the approach of a storm. 2 days later, a broad email landed on every desk at the hospital and the theater. Regulatory inquiry launched. All personnel must cooperate. Word spread fast. Estelle called an emergency meeting in the largest boardroom available, media cordoned off just outside glass walls streaked by afternoon rain. The room buzzed with tension, a faint pulse of uncertainty in every voice. Lawyers in gray and navy lined the perimeter. She stood at the head of the table, spine arrow straight, voice steady but color slowly draining from her face. We will answer fully to the review, she intoned, but we do not make policy for troublemakers or opportunists. She indicated the file in front of her. These allegations are based on misinformation. A courier entered a sealed envelope on a silver tray. The assistant approached, handing it directly to Estelle, whose hands stilled only for a half second. Her thumb rubbed the edge of an anxiety fob lurking in her bag. Across the room, Jard entered without announcement, quietly taking a seat at the far end. His shirt was pressed, no longer the faded navy of the usher, and his old watch glimmered beneath his cuff, a detail unnoticed by most but not Tom, who watched, eyes slightly wider. Someone stood up. It was Mr. Talbot, board member. I wish to draw your attention to new evidence. He spoke with a weight not easily moved. Mr. Miles is not merely an employee here. He is the father of the child we are discussing. Silence flooded the room. Estelle's hand gripped the letter, knuckles whitening. The folder before her labeled DNA proof paternity action. She said nothing, only flicked her gaze uncertainly from face to face. You sent the letter, Jard said, voice even. You made this public, not me. The journalists whispered, one moved to record on her phone. An assistant cozied up to the wall, eyes down. Someone nearby coughed, the sound loud in the thick air. Estelle drew herself taller. Your data is invalid, she said, but her voice was as thin as wind in a metal vent. Are you sure you want this public? The tabled lawyers stared at their pads. Do you understand what you're doing? She added, barely audible. Jard met her gaze without flinching. That's not your call anymore. His words fell softly, but the echo lingered. Estelle's mouth moved once, searching for something she could say to salvage the order, redefine the story. She found no words. Another board member stopped tapping his pen, gaze fixed on the table. Outside, the rain eased, but inside, every face reflected uncertainty, discomfort, and calculation. Tom, watching from the side of the room, stepped forward, the only movement in a stunned silence. We know what we saw. He did what no one else would. Estelle tried once more. This is unprecedented, she managed, but no one replied. Jard set his folder down and exhaled, hands steady. The facts are in the file. The story never changed. The woman opposite darted a look at the exits. An assistant fumbled to cover a cough. The board's legal advisor bit his lip. In the moment's hold, the world contracted to a single point. Estelle's eyes closed for just a heartbeat. The room waited for a verdict that was already clear. I want the truth, not an arrangement, Jard said quietly. The room was silent. The arrangement was finished. 6 months later, Chloe walked out of her classroom, backpack heavy with new books and the broken music box tucked carefully inside. On her lunchbox, there was a new note penned in Jard's quick script: be brave, ask good questions, try again. Tom now greeted visitors at a new post, front desk at the city's flagship theater, a small plaque mentioning his assistance during the fire. The rumors of Dr. Lennox's resignation were now a line in the local paper, a byline without comment. The apartment was no bigger but brighter. Jard set 2 bowls on the table. Chloe swung her feet beneath, humming off-key. She lifted her music box. The ballerina spun halfway now, jerking imperfect but moving nonetheless. Do you ever run out of tries, Daddy? She asked, curious. He watched the ballerina's broken spin, then reached over and let it turn with his finger. Not as long as you're here, he answered. Outside, the world continued its busy shuffle, convinced that silence ends all stories. But the truth tucks itself quietly into the smallest spaces: a broken music box, a lunch note, a girl's question, waiting until someone chooses to notice again. Chloe's question still echoed as Jard rinsed breakfast dishes, sunlight stretching striped patterns through the window's slatted blind. He watched his daughter hum over her workbook. The apartment held a hush, but different now, less the strained quiet of things unsaid than the peaceful drift of ordinary routine. He glanced at the rent notice tacked near the door. Due today. The number was circled, but for the first time in a year his heart didn't stumble to the sight. After the inquiry, the board had pressured the city for back pay, consulting wages for every overtime shift and emergency repair he'd provided. It wasn't much, but enough. There was dignity preserved in an envelope on the counter, and in the trust of those who showed up when fire alarms rang. Jard dried his hands. Teeth brushed, coat, what I forget, he called. Chloe flashed a grin, one sock only half on. Shoes, she said, left them in the hall again. She darted out, voice trailing. He wiped down the table with practiced precision, pausing as Chloe returned and bounced the music box on the seat. Its mechanism jittered, a faint tune catching in stops and starts. Did you want to try fixing it again tonight? He asked, not looking up. Chloe considered, cocking her head. Maybe, or maybe we leave it like it is. Sometimes it's funnier when she twirls and then falls over. Her words, light and sure, settled the matter. The walk to school was bright, the city pulsing with Friday energy. Jard held Chloe's small hand, the rhythm unhurried. On the corner, Mrs. Lowen waved, her dog tugging at the leash. Don't grow up too quick, she called to Chloe, who swung her backpack in reply. At the gate, Chloe turned and hugged him tight around the waist. Try hard, she called, quoting his notes. He watched her vanish into the bustling crowd of children, her yellow shirt bright as a daffodil. The sidewalk felt stretched with possibility. Jard walked on, hands in pockets, heading toward the Royal Cinema. The building across the way, once a derelict warehouse, now being fitted for community workshops, rose behind new fencing. The city had voted. The old theater and surrounding blocks would remain under heritage protection. The redevelopment would cast wider nets, but some stories would be allowed to persist where they mattered. Near the marquee, Tom leaned against the wall, balancing a paper cup and clipboard. The new badge on his lapel shone dull gold. He broke into a smile as Jard approached. "Morning, hero," Tom teased. "Inspection guy just left you a stack of service tickets. Don't say I didn't warn you." "Let me guess, projector's still acting up." "And the soda taps and the exit sensors, nothing changes." Tom handed over a folded memo. "But there's good news. City says they're keeping union labor. You and me get to stay grumpy, just like the old days." Jard grinned, an easy warmth softening his jaw. "Just my luck." He ducked inside, scents of popcorn and floor wax filling the lobby. The usual faces were still here, Jordan at concessions, Lee sweeping up candy wrappers, Marco clowning with preview reels. The Royal was no longer at the center of scandal, just the same bricky presence alongside 2 taco shops and a pawn store. Yet in small ways it mattered. Mid-morning brought a surprise. A short woman in hospital scrubs stood hesitantly in the lobby, holding a plastic bag and searching the dim space. "Can I help you?" Jard asked, setting aside a box of vacuum belts. She turned a little too fast, nerves visible in her stilled shoulders. "Someone said you, Jard Miles, were here, that you fix things." "That's me, what do you need?" She lifted the bag, drawing out a kid's nebulizer, the tubing split near the intake valve. "Clinic down the street. Deliveries delayed, and tonight we have 6 asthmatic kids, no backup. Think you can patch it till tomorrow." Jard inspected the part. "I can do better. I'll mend the seal and reinforce it. Give me an hour." The woman blinked, gratitude mixing with relief. "No one else could help," she said. "Nobody even tried." He was already heading for the back office, toolbox in hand. Behind him, Tom watched with a smile, a different sort, deeper than before. It took 40 minutes, 3 zip ties, and a trick he remembered from Maria's time in pediatrics. When he handed it back, the nurse beamed. "You don't show up in our donor reports, but you've got a reputation." Jard's brow creased, uncertain. "I don't need reports." The nurse's smile softened. "Just reminders there are good people left." He nodded, repairing things his quiet rebellion. Estelle Lennox paced the length of her newly modest office at a consulting firm across town, the sprawl of the bay now only a glimpse through glass blocks. She wore her hair differently, looser, the sharp suit swapped for a softer cut of blue. The photo of herself as a girl with her mother sat facing forward now, no longer turned inward to hide. Her thumb unconsciously found the edge of her anxiety fob, worn almost smooth. Her phone pinged with news digests, words recurring on the ticker. "Royal Cinema Hero. Whistleblower inquiry closes. Board appoints new president." Her name no longer led the headlines, her reputation battered and limping toward anonymity. A legal settlement had quieted most questions, and she had adhered to its letter: no comment, no press, no vengeful amends. A knock at the door. Marta, her assistant, peeked in, tablet in hand. "Your 11 a.m. rescheduled for Thursday. Also, you got a letter, old-fashioned." She handed over a blue envelope, uncertain. Estelle frowned, her practiced control almost cracking, then slit the seal. Inside, a child's handwriting, messy, friendly, unfurled on thick paper. "Dear Dr. Lennox, you don't know me, but you used to work at the same building as my daddy. I hope you are not sad. My music box only works halfway now, but it is still pretty. Dad says if you keep trying, you find a way for things to work again. From Chloe Miles." Estelle sat heavily, the letter sliding between her hands. She stared at the words, at the hopefulness unbruised by adult disappointments. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine that years of perfectionist striving and brittle expectation could yield something gentler. Acceptance, or at least the chance to begin at a place just on this side of forgiveness. She scribbled a brief reply, her script looping and awkward. "Dear Chloe, thank you for your letter. I will keep trying too. Please tell your dad that I hope you both find happiness. Hold on to that music box. It's the trying that matters most. Best wishes. Estelle." Sealing it, she set it by the door, uncertain if it would ever be delivered. Saturday night, Jard prepped for Chloe's favorite ritual, movie night. Chloe danced circles on a throw rug music box set center stage. She insisted on picking the film, the one with the dancing bear, and stacked popcorn bowls with the seriousness of a field marshal. As credits rolled, she pulled her knees up, gaze intent on the spinning ballerina atop the music box. Its tune staggered but continued. "Are you happy, Daddy?" she asked suddenly. He blinked, caught off guard. "Why do you ask?" Chloe shrugged. "You laugh more now. I think you like being the fixer for everyone." She pressed the ballerina down and let it go, releasing a hiccuped melody. Jard considered, recalling the anxious nights waiting for rent to come due, the breathless pause before every difficult encounter, the fear of letting Chloe see him afraid. "I think I'm happiest when I see you brave enough to ask big questions," he decided, "and when I know the things I fix actually matter to someone." Chloe frowned. "But what about the things you can't fix?" Jard hitched a shoulder. "Then I try again, maybe in a different way, or let someone borrow my tries like you do." Satisfied, Chloe nodded. "I'll always have extra." She handed him her favorite crayon, the one worn almost flat. "You can keep this so you never run out." Jard closed his fingers over the crayon, the unlikely inheritance of resilience and hope. He set it on the table as solemnly as an urn. The phone buzzed. A new message banner. "Request, System Diagnostic Main Library. Can you assist, Mr. Miles?" The name attached was a city official, friendly. Below, a second. "Chloe, permission slip for science trip next week. Please sign." Normalcy had set deep roots. "Looks like I get to help the library next," Jard told Chloe. "Told you the world always needs another fixer." She beamed, arms thrown up. "Can I come after school?" she asked. "Deal." At the theater, the marquee's bulbs flickered against dusk. Tom locked up, pocketing keys, pausing as Jard approached with Chloe skipping beside. "Another day, another artifact saved," Tom guessed, raising an eyebrow. "She patched up the office stapler," Jard said, "almost as good as new." Tom laughed low and full, then his voice sobered. "You ever look back on how close you came to losing all this?" Jard nodded. "I look every day, but I move forward now too." A couple passing by waved. They'd been among the crowd the night of the fire, their daughter walking ahead, safe because someone had known what to do. As they turned the corner, the woman called out, "Still our hero," and Chloe grinned at her father, proud as pride can be. Tom, watching, pressed something into Jard's palm, a tarnished old key. "Found this behind the popcorn machine. Think it opens the original safe from the 20s. You seem like the sort who will figure out what it's for." Jard weighed the key, felt its age and promise. "Thank you." "Thank you," Tom answered, and the words meant more than just for the key. That night as Chloe slept, Jard opened his folder of old documents, sealed verdicts, bills, outdated resumes, Maria's faded hospital band. He reached for the new letter from Estelle, which had arrived that afternoon. He read it twice, folding it alongside Chloe's own note. He was not one for bitterness. He believed in fences mended, in wisdom found in late hours, in the unlikely grace of learning when to let go. He tucked the old appellate case away, no longer burdensome, no longer a secret to flinch from in the darkness. He ran his thumb over the crayon Chloe had given him, then the worn key from Tom, his quiet tokens of persistence. In the living room, the music box wobbled on its axis. Chloe, dreaming, stirred and murmured, "Keep trying." Jard watched the city's lights blink from the window, the world busy, uncaring, but alive with small attempts, small salvations. He exhaled, feeling finally and without reserve that even if he could never fix everything, he could be counted on for one more try. And outside, as dawn colored the sky, a gentle breeze carried the city's noise upward and away, a lullaby of ordinary courage, an answer to the question that had started it all. Are you sure you want this public? Always, in the end, someone must say yes and trust that the truth, let out into the daylight, will find its own shape and do more good than harm. And so the story went on.